Just over 1 year ago, CEOs from around the world, together with United Nations Secretary General Guterres, launched the Principles for Responsible Banking as the global framework for the sustainable banking system of the future. By signing these principles, banks commit to align their strategy and business practices with the global goals that humanity has set itself for a sustainable future, the Sustainable Development Goals and the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. They commit to put their bank in the service of their society and our planet. Celebrating the 1 year anniversary today, we want to hear from CEOs what they have achieved in the first 12 months to deliver on the commitment made, what changes they have implemented, and how they have contributed significantly to their society's sustainable future. And we also want to and need to discuss how, why, and where we are still seeing transactions and decisions that seem, at least at a first glance, out of line with the commitments made. For that discussion, I have with me today CEOs from all 5 world regions.
Would you like me to mute?
I have with me from Asia Pacific, Arjat Mohammed Ismail, CEO of Bank Pembangunan Malaysia Berhad. For simplicity today, the Malaysia Development Bank. Good evening to Malaysia, Arshad. From Latin America, I have with me Fabian Cohn, the CEO of Banco Galicia. Good morning to Argentina, Fabian. From North America, I have with me Guy Cormier, the CEO of Desjardins Group in Canada. Guy, good to have you with us again. For Africa and the Middle East, we will have with us Joshua Oigara, CEO of KCB in Kenya. Welcome, Joshua. And for Europe, I have here with me Robert Swag, who's joining us from the Netherlands. With that, I think, Guy, let's go over to North America in many ways as a follow-up to our conversation last year, because exactly 1 year and a few weeks ago, we were together in New York at the launch panel for the Principles, and I asked you about your plans regarding the energy transition, because of course we all know North America is responsible for over 20% of global oil production. And back then you told me that taking into account the 1.6 million people that work in the industry, Desjardins really would support a careful but nevertheless decisive transition in the energy sector and shift its financing towards renewables, energy efficiency, smart transport. So my questions to you today are really, what have you done in the first 12 months to deliver on that promise, and with what results? And is what you've achieved and the magnitude of your measures already enough to really bring Desjardins in line with a well below 2-degree pathways? And maybe when we'll receive public targets for alignment and a pathway to a net zero portfolio?
Well, thanks for the question, and hello everyone. Really pleased to be with you today and celebrating this 1 year anniversary. Yes, I think with more than close to 8 million members and clients across the country, Desjardins has to be an example. And yes, in the last 12 months, we have done quite a lot, and really happy about what we achieved. It's sure that one of the challenges that we're facing is the fact that, yes, you said it, the worldwide production from North America is quite important, and it's real people, real families who are working in this area, and we have to consider the social and economic impact on these families too. But at the same time, I think everyone understands that, and we strongly believe at Desjardins that moving to an economy that is based on renewables will build stronger communities, a healthier environment, but also more long-term jobs. So I think that this is the direction that we're heading right now. If I look at what we have done at Desjardins in the last 12 months, maybe four things that are really, really relevant from my perspective. First, we decided that we will concentrate all of our infrastructure investments in renewables energy. So really, really a key focus on that side. All our investment on the insurance side, investment side, banking side will be on renewables for these kind of assets. The second thing is for our members and clients. We decided to make it easier for them to choose responsible investment products and lead by example by let's say creating a comprehensive range and a responsible investment funds that are oil production and pipeline free. And these mutual funds are traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and many of our members and clients have bought it already. So it's also a way for us to bring value to our members and clients. And then third, we decided to invest $10 million to help people to use electrical vehicle by installing around 200 electrical charging stations throughout our Cases Credit Union network, mainly in Quebec and Ontario. And the fourth one is, from my perspective, the most, let's say, relevant one, or at least structural one, is to increase our ESG steering committee to ensure that cross-sector in the whole organization, we will apply all our commitment and all our strategies. And as an example, we decided in the last 12 months to phase out from thermal coal and also from tobacco. So it's sure that from our perspective, signing the principles for us didn't necessarily change where we were heading or what was the target, but I think it changed the pace, it changed the velocity, and how much rapid we want to be in the industry. So in the last 12 months, quite few initiatives that we have made, and I think the 48,000 employees at Desjardins are quite really committed regarding the principles.
Thank you very much, Guy. And I think quite interesting that you're stressing the importance of bringing along your clients with specific products so they can be part of the transition, and also bringing along your internal structures and your employees. I've one follow-up question, and it relates a little bit to what your fellow Canadian, Mark Carney, said earlier today. And that's about really needing change, systemic change across the whole industry, which is, of course, what the principles are all about. Now, Canada is one of the countries where many of the large banks are still hesitating to sign the principles, and with that, fully commit to aligning their portfolios with a well below 2 degrees pathway. What do you think needs to happen to change that? Sue?
Well, we have to keep a dialogue, a stronger dialogue with different partners. I think everyone understand where we should go, and I think everyone understand that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we must make some changes. But from one institution to another, I feel that the urgency is not maybe the same, or the pathway to reach the goals are not the same. So I think we must continue to have strong dialogue, be sure that we are really transparent with what we're doing. Actually, at Desjardins, the oil investment or the oil industry represent less than 1% of our portfolios. So we have to be transparent as financial institution. So more and more stakeholders will ask questions, will want to, let's say, not disclosure, but will ask for some plan to see how the financial institutions are transiting from one economy to another, and be sure that we keep the right pressure to have a balance where in the next few years we see more commitment and more people that are committed, more financial institutions in North America and in Canada that are committed to at least have a plan, an exit strategy, and be sure that we will help this industry of the oil and gas to transit from one point to another. It's also a question of people, families that are working in this industry right now. So how much can we help them? And at Desjardins, what we decided is to invest in the renewables in our investment infrastructure investment portfolios. And the results are there. So I think many other financial institutions can do the same.
Okay, thank you very much, Guy. And staying with the climate alignment topic, Robert, how well on track is ABN AMRO with regards to achieving alignment of its portfolio with a well below 2-degree pathways? What is your strategy? What are the milestones? And what has been the progress you've made over the last 12 months?
Yeah, so the climate impact has been extremely important for ABN AMRO. It's actually one of the reasons, and ABN AMRO's approach, I might add, to many of these topics, one of the reasons for me to join this bank as CEO. One of the things that was very, very clear as it related to climate impact is the way the bank has been dealing with green bond principles. We've had a leadership position for many years in that area. We were the first bank to issue green bonds, and we will continue to do so. And it's fascinating how we are now very closely working together with many of the large international banks on green bonds. And I know, coming from the industry in a different perspective, this has been a discussion for quite some time, and it's actually been fascinating to see how the community comes together. The other part that I always find extremely fascinating on climate change is if you only think about your own impact in terms of climate change, it's one side of the story. The other side of the story is how do you actually work with climate finance research in our particular area? So what do we contribute when we talk about the platforms for carbon accounting professionals? There's a host of examples where ABN AMRO has taken a lead in actually participating in the finance research, because I do think facts matter and facts help. And this is exactly where we find ourselves as we engage with our clients, to be able to talk from a level of expertise rather than from a level of desire. So it's actually it's made it very visible and very recognizable by our clients. Issuing our own publications as they relate to, for example, guiding a bank's energy portfolio. It talks about how you do that as a bank, but you take very much into consideration how the environment around you operates, and therefore you share the knowledge that you have. So this is not just looking into and onto your own operations, but much more important, it's sharing the information you have. So sticking to your core activities, but also report out on it. And that brings me to my last point, which I think we all find, it's this whole non-financial data challenge that we need to deal with when we talk about climate change. I think the consistent call to action for consistent reporting, for making yourself accountable and then report accordingly, I think is something that we need to be very mindful of as we consider non-financial data, and certainly as it relates to climate. So it's been 5 short months, but I have found every evidence that I was hoping to find in the way ABN AMRO is behaving around climate change.
Robert, thank you very much for that. I think you very nicely stressed the importance of doing this as a coalition. Banks can't do this alone. They need to work with each other. They need to work with a lot of other stakeholders. And I think that does apply not just to the area of climate. And so let us actually head to Kenya. Joshua, I don't know if you're able to speak by now.
I can speak, Simone.
Fantastic, that is good. Joshua, KCB has really been one of the 30 banks that have led the development of the principles for responsible banking. And your bank has made them an integral part of your own strategy. From your experience, how have the principles really enabled you to better serve your Kenyan society, and especially disadvantaged groups within that society? And how has this actually translated into business opportunities and growing customer base for KCB?
So thank you, Simone, for the questions, and thank you for having me today. We operate across the region, not just in Kenya, but we operate in East Africa, so at 6 countries in addition to the Republic of Ethiopia, where we have a rep office. And I've been here for a long time as a CEO, now in my 8th year. And we've been doing, so I'll speak on 2 areas today, largely on financial inclusion and also on capacity building, and maybe touch on just climate adaptation. And as you know, perhaps more, that there is a lot of values here on people with disabilities, women especially in our businesses, and extending credit on digital platforms in our markets. So we've been on the forefront of that for a long time. Kenya is known as the global innovator for mobile money with a platform like M-Pesa, which is quite well known across the world. So today we have, in addition to 2 million additional clients since we started this program a year ago. So there is quite some activities going on from the population, and not just in terms of access, but we're also providing, extending loan facilities, what we call microloans, nearly $250 million in the last year. Percent has gone into vulnerable groups, people living with disabilities, youth, and women. So overall, we've seen acceleration and we've seen value created by adopting the principles. And on capacity building, we've been working very closely with all our staff. We have access of 7,000 strong resources, the region. So we are doing gender intelligent relationship management. We work very closely with the World Bank on this. And we've seen more and more women in small businesses in the region. And that has been exciting for us. So I would say that overall the approval rates are higher. We've seen nearly a 4x growth on approvals in terms of women businesses in our markets. So overall, it's a deliberate positive aspect. We have new policies at the board level for gender and financial inclusion, stakeholder policies, and sustainability. And finally, Simone, we are now in the process of seeking accreditation for the climate fund globally to be able to push our green lending portfolio. And we are targeting nearly $200 to $300 million annually on lending in this area. So I would say overall, we see, despite the challenges of COVID today, Simone, it's been a net positive for our institutions so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Fourfold growth in loan disbursement to women. If that's not a business opportunity, that is really fantastic to hear. And let's see if in Latin America we can understand similar win-wins between really offering opportunities to various societal groups and growing the business. Fabian, Latin America does suffer from very high levels of inequality. Argentina is not an exception there. Also, Latin America hosts some of the most biodiverse, some of the most precious ecosystems we have left in the world, unfortunately in decline. It would be great to hear from you how Banco Galicia has been using its products and services to help your society address those key challenges and what results you've achieved so far. Fabian, you need to unmute.
Good morning. It's early in the morning here in Buenos Aires, Simon. It's 8 a.m. So I'm pleased to join you for this first year anniversary. Well, in the first place, the principles allowed us to deepen our sustainability-oriented management. We improved the work which had begun some years ago. During these 12 months, we focused on aligning the business strategy and in particular the strategic indicators to the principles. We focused on the preliminary analysis of impacts according to the capitals of integrated reporting framework. I would say in second term, they enabled us to take a further steps toward consolidating key performance indicators and objectives that we manage every day to become a more profitable, efficient, and sustainable financial platform. And last but not least, there a great impact in the bank work. For example, we focused on designing financial products with social and environmental impact. As Robert mentioned, with green bonds, we issued a green bond. We were the first financial institution in Argentina to issue a green bond, which marked our commitment to finance projects with a positive impact on the environment. This bond was subscribed by the IFC And the proceeds from Banco Galicia's bond are supporting energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainable construction projects, among others. If we make a calculation of this project, this could reduce greenhouse emissions in Argentina by about 157 metric tons of CO2 per year. That would be roughly the equivalent of taking more of 33,000 cars off the road. So we are very happy with that. Regarding impact financing, let me give you some examples related to that. In order to provide an effective response to the context of COVID-19, we launched a line for SMEs that produce essential inputs for the protection of the disease. So this was a very favorable line of credit, and that for SMEs that produce essential supplies such as personal hygiene, medical supplies, pharmaceutical products, and that they needed to increase their production due to the dramatic increase on the demand. So this line reached approximately 650 companies that were favored with this situation in the months from March to July, I would say, of this year. At the same time, we made a partnership with B Corp Argentina, and we developed a special credit line that was granted to entrepreneurs to boost their business focus on triple impact and those certified as B companies. Regarding financial inclusion, let me mention rapidly a few examples. Joshua mentioned electronic money. We think that is a really powerful tool for financial inclusion. In Argentina, I would say that 9 to 10 Argentinians, they have a working cell phone, an active cell phone. So electric money is one of the ways to rapidly grow with financial inclusion. And in that scenario, we launched Naranja X, which is our virtual wallet to carry out several banking operations. And we are working very actively in education through the platform Economia and YouTube campaigns for education of the population in financial matters.
Fantastic, Fabian. Those are great examples across various areas. Let's maybe see how this corresponds to realities in Asia Pacific. Arshad, Malaysia Development Bank is a more recent signatory than all the others here on the panel. And as such, of course, first steps are really to understand how your bank's operations, how your bank's financing for the real economy relates to key challenges in your country, to really understand what your impacts are, and then to get that knowledge into your decision-making processes. And that's something you've been focusing on in this first year. It would be great to give us an idea of what exactly you've done, what the results and conclusions are so far, and how you think or expect this will change your financing decisions and the way you engage with your clients going forward. Arshad, you'll need to unmute. Arshad, you need to unmute.
You hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you, Simone. Good evening from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We are indeed a very new member. We were admitted in June of this year, and we are delighted to join this sort of community of banks. Let me start by stating the obvious. Financial institutions are very influential entities, and we have the capacity to shape mindsets. And that's why we are sitting around this virtual table having this discussion. I'd like to share with you a couple of initiatives that we have undertaken here in Malaysia at the Malaysia Development Bank in line with the principles of responsible banking. We set up a sustainable development financing fund last year, and the size of this fund is 2 billion ringgit, or approximately $500 million US. And the objective of this fund is to support projects that promote any one of the 17 SDGs. So by design, the scope of this fund is quite broad. We didn't want to sort of be too rigid in how we grant financing. And the take-up has been fairly encouraging. But of course, there's a lot more we need to do to increase the awareness among our customers and various sectors of the economy in general. That is just one initial initiative, but the more exciting initiative that I would like to share with you relates to something we implemented earlier this year, and that is what we call the Impact Assessment Framework, or MIND. We call it Measuring Impact to National Development. Now, what is this all about? We realized last year that it was one thing to grant financing to projects that were in line with one of the 17 SDGs. But how do we understand the kind of impact it will have on the environment, on the community, on the people? So we sought the help of the World Bank to develop an impact assessment framework. And the first question they asked us was, which of the 17 SDGs would you like to measure your projects against? And that was a question I didn't have an answer to. So we had to do an initial assessment. I asked the World Bank team to map the 17 SDGs against our portfolio as it then was, to determine which of the 17 SDGs would be most relevant. And after the initial assessment, we discovered that 5 of these SDGs were most relevant. So we decided to finalize our impact assessment framework by anchoring the framework to these 5 SDGs. And every transaction we evaluate is measured using this framework. And another question we had to answer was whether we ought to reject transactions or deals that don't quite meet the minimum threshold. And this was a very important question for us to answer. And the decision we made was that we would not reject automatically projects that didn't quite meet the minimum threshold. The score would allow us to make an informed decision, and we can then guide our customers to improve their scores over time. As I said, every transaction we evaluate and approve will be measured using this framework. And I'd like to, before I end, share with you 2 examples of such projects. These are projects we have funded using our Sustainable Development Financing Fund, and also measured the impact of using our impact assessment framework. One project relates to the construction of foreign workers' accommodation with all the amenities, and another project relates to the development of a leachate treatment plant attached to a landfill. As we all know, the older landfills tend to be quite damaging to the environment. So we funded this leachate treatment plant to ensure that the leachate was treated in line with the applicable environmental guidelines to ensure that the landfill itself would not cause pollution to the surrounding areas.
Fantastic, Arshad. I think a lot of learnings there in terms of really focusing on what's most important, the 5 SDGs that are most important to your society, around partnering with external actors. And a very interesting point you raised there around, should we reject some projects or should we work with the clients? And I think that's a discussion I would very much like to go into a little bit more deeply. There is fantastic work that has been done by signatories around the world in those first 12 months. At the same time, we've had civil society organizations repeatedly flag to us transactions, financing decisions that banks made that didn't necessarily seem in line with the commitments that banks have agreed to under the principles. And so it would be quite interesting to hear from a couple of you, why is this? What trade-offs are there in the background? And what sometimes really is the background for a decision to stay with a client in a transaction that the outside world might potentially criticize? So I'll maybe start with Guy. You're smiling at me. But yeah, what are the trade-offs? And have you said no to anything over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think it's a very tough question because we are in a transition process. So by transitioning, it means that sometimes we will say no. And at other moments or with other clients and members, we will say, okay, let's work together to try to see if we can change together an outcome or an output. So it's a real tough one. If I just look at Desjardins, yes, we looked at our measures and we refused around 25% of some of the projects that have been, let's say, proposed to us on the banking side of our activities. Sometimes it was not only just oil and gas, it was a casino, tobacco, some activities that weren't aligned with our ESG criteria. I think the main thing here, or the key word is how clear are our ESG criteria? How clear are they? Are they very clear? Does everyone inside the organization across the sectors really understand the meaning of? And are they enough clear that outside Desjardins or outside the financial institution, the stakeholder understand that yes, maybe we will stay a partner of this company because of influence, governance, trying to see if we can help them to transition from one point to another, staying around the table instead of leaving the table because we feel that we will continue to have more influence. And with other partners, yes, it's time to leave the table because we don't feel that they have a plan, they have a rigorous plan, or we see a tone at the top, there's no tone at the top. So I think it's not one or another, it's one and another. And there is some partner that we really feel that they're heading in the right direction. But how clear are our own ESG criteria? I think it's the key here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Guy. Joshua, let me also extend this question to you in Kenya. You are a signatory to the collective commitment to climate action, so you're among the most ambitious of our banks that have made a commitment to setting scenario-based targets within the next couple of years, and that already now have reported back on their actions in the first 12 months. We've seen projects being financed in Kenya, like the Lamu coal-fired power plant. KCB has not been involved in that, but I imagine there must have been other tough decisions for KCB in those first 12 months. Maybe you can add a little bit to Guy's layout. Where have you refused, and where have you maybe decided that it's better to stay with the company and exert your influence for ensuring that there is this more positive real-world impact?
Thank you, Simone. I would like to agree with what Guy said earlier. That this is very deliberate and intentional aspect for us in terms of what we can participate in. So I want to speak about the Lamu Call project. So we do have sectors that our answer to those sectors is a simple no. We do not participate. In tobacco, for instance, in coal and oil and gas. We've been very upfront from a couple of years ago, actually, that we do not participate. We are driving an agenda in collaboration with the entire industry. So we are a member of 40 banks to come together with a similar kind of guideline for the sector because we believe in it. I would say it's more like creating a snowball effect. Initially, You do get some resistance over time, but we see our clients making continuous progress. And deliberately, the Lamu Call hasn't been funded up to today. So there is more questions being raised, not just by ourselves, but many stakeholders. And so I will summarize it that in the initial days, which is now the couple of years, we assess, we do a review of all our loan applications annually to the tune of $500 million on a criteria that really aligns with our own internal ESG ambitions. And so we have been one bank and we continue growing at double digits despite, Simone, that challenge which we see. But I'm excited to see that over a dozen of top banks, insurance and development finance institutions are starting to restrict their lending portfolio either in energy area like coal investments because of growing concern about the impact of burning fossil fuels. So we are seeing a direction. So I call it a point of inflection. And as champions and catalysts, Simone, I would say we must continue to lead because we do see the benefit of that and it does deliver results for our institutions. So it's a commitment that we will keep and we see the progress. Thank you.
Fantastic. Joshua, thank you very much for that. I think those are fantastic final words. Couldn't have said it any better. The role of Principles for Responsible Signatories as catalysts and as leaders in the sector that create a snowball effect with many others. Only a very short time today, and you've heard a few snapshots from around the world of what has been done in the first 12 months. Of course, we do have a more extensive collection on our webpage of the progress that has been made in year one, and at the same time, it is unique to the Principles for Responsible Banking that we make sure we involve critical friends and we ensure accountability. So we are setting up a civil society advisory body as only financial sector initiative. The call for applications has gone out last week, so we do encourage all civil society institutions in the audience to download the application from the webpage and apply for membership in that body. With that, big thank you to my panelists, to all of the 5 world regions. Thank you very much for joining us partly early in the morning and providing your insights to us, and have a good rest of the day or evening, depending on which region you're in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.